time. And instead of don't, we do talk about that. We talk about what you can do in replacing don't.
Yeah, so more positive.
More positive, and so it's sort of like, would you want that to happen to you? That kind of thing.
Exactly.
But there are rules. In our school, we try to keep them a little bit global, like they're at the front of the agenda.
Okay.
And we have to go over them and over them. And some classrooms have them posted. I do not have them posted, but I review them a lot with the students. So they know in my room, they know the word acceptable and unacceptable.
Okay.
And if it's unacceptable, you have to tell me why. So,
oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so they're not posted in my room, but...
you seem to model them a lot, though.
Yeah, we do. Like, if you're in trouble, you know why. And most often, the students are really quick to tell you why. Like, I know what I did. Like, they almost don't want to talk about it because they were caught and they know what they did, but repercussions, you have to tell. That's up.
Did we answer that one already? How did you come up with them?
Well, yeah, basically you said
you
have your own expectations.
Exactly.
And you use there as the anchor.
Yeah, and the students, like, because you want them to buy in, I think it's important that they have a little bit of say.
Yeah.
So.
And they feel like when they implement those rules, it's almost like they'll follow it better, knowing that, like, oh,
yes.
I can rule, I have to live by it, kind of thing.
And the older grades, teachers that I know, they do contracts. They have like a behavioral contract or a homework contract or whatever. So I do know a little bit about those. I haven't used them myself, but apparently they are, the kids really like them. They find it's really kind of high end, you know, this contract, and they have to get their mother to sign it, and they have to sign it, and they need a witness and all this stuff. And then if you breach the contract, what the consequences. And so it's just kind of like, I'm not sure in terms of how, what the consequence is, but there is a strike system. It's like if it's once, it's this. If it's two, it's... So I know the older grades, a couple teachers do use the contract and they like it a lot. So that would be something to think about too. Like if you had a maybe grade 4 or 5.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. To understand it a bit more.
Which goes into the next question. What type of consequences do you use or have? So we learned about positive, negative, and corrective consequences.
Okay.
Like if they were to break the rule, I guess you can't really break a procedure, but
right.
that would be more corrective, I guess.
Within, I'd say, our school, we do try to keep it somewhat standard, and it's usually a letter to the person that you offended, if it happens to be, and a letter to your parent to say what happened.
Oh, wow, okay.
So usually I have to do 2 letters, and then there's a form, like a school, at the school level, that goes home with it. And it's the teacher that was on supervision that would need to write that up the right way. So I would say that it's definitely a learning experience for the child, more more than anything, because they, yes, they're in trouble, but once again, they have to tell why. They have to write about it. We really encourage them to put it in their own words. Our school has what we call a respect and responsibility room.
Okay.
So if you're in trouble, you have to go to the respect and responsibility room, and the teacher on supervision reports what happened on the incident form. And then there's intervention worker in there, and that's where the student does their letter writing, and then like we take some photocopies just for the record, and then the parent gets, I think, both copies, what they wrote to the child and to the parent. So you know, home knows about it, school knows about it, and the child involved, their parent kind of knows about it, like, oh, it's been handled at school. And like during that time they're missing class, so quite often they have like a little bit extra homework because they missed the classwork too. So within the classroom, I definitely will have to take like recess away for certain things, which seems to be a big thing for grade 2 to miss the recess. But within the school, we do have a system, and we really try as a school to follow that general system. But I don't care to send students there for just because, like, responsibility-wise, if they forgot books and it's night number 2 and I ask them to bring it back, well, I might just keep them in at recess because I want them to read to me because I'm not sure if it's taking place at home. That would just be an example. But within our school, we try our best to keep it pretty consistent when there's an incident. So, but the respect and responsibility room, works very, very well.
Would that be something that would have been called like in-school suspension?
It's in,
or
yeah,
in-school detention?
in some cases, yes.
But I like that. I like calling it respect and
Yeah,
responsibility.
because it's sort of the positive spin.
The positive spin on it.
And they get like a little bit of counseling too.
Okay.
How would you handle it differently? What would you do different next time? So
rather than just being punished for it, you can actually learn the correct way to do it.
So they have their letter writing to do, and then beyond that they have these little like worksheets, you might call them, and it's all like how to do better, what would you do next time,
oh, wow.
if you're in this situation again, what would you do, you know, that kind of thing. So it's just to try to correct it.
And it gives them the tools to do it differently the
Yes.
next time. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
So with like positive, negative, and corrective consequences, what ones do you find that you use most in your classroom? What ones do you think are more important? If there is one that's more important.
I think they all have their place in the teaching world. I really do. I mean, there's a lot to be said for positive. I give lots of awards, little awards in class all the time, like wow and terrific, and exactly why you were wow or terrific.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And we have like a little ticket system. You know, okay, today in math. Especially if you're introducing like a brand new topic or like an outcome and you really want them, so it's like, okay, for this lesson we're going to have a draw, and if you're paying attention your name's going to go into the draw, so they're just hanging on your every word, and then at the end you have a little draw, little treasure chest, draw from the treasure chest. But I definitely use positive a lot. Corrective is important because, you know, there is the odd time that students won't repeat the behavior because they know, especially like kindergarten, I think you need to use corrective. They don't know that you're not supposed to put rocks down the slide. That just seems fun to them.
Yeah, exactly.
And someone gets hit with the rock on the other end and they figure it out. But at the same time, I kind of think that, you know, it's important to look at it case by case, but corrective has a real place. Mm-hmm. Positive certainly has a place, and negative consequences I think are somewhat important too, because if you don't do that, then it's going to be really hard to manage. Like on the playground and cafeteria and all those, it would just be as if all the students could get off with whatever.
Yeah,
so
they did.
I think they all sort of have their place. As the teacher, I would say within my classroom I probably use positive and corrective more. And then when I'm the supervision teacher, I'm probably a little bit more negative, depending on what happened. Like if it's a bullying incident and pushing and punching and those kinds of things. Like
when it's extreme.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. You've already talked about what type of praise you use, so I'll just go on to the next one. It says, do you put your rules and procedures into place before or after a behavior happens?
Oh, before.
Okay.
Definitely before.
And if there's something like a new behavior that's happening, would you address it right then and there?
Yes.
Put a new rule into place?
Yeah, definitely we would have a big conversation about it. And with the, when you're saying about putting them into place, it's really quite funny because the students actually know the consequence almost always. Okay. Like they know the next step. They know whether it's going to be this respect and responsibility. They almost like levels of how terrible it was, or if you're just going to take my recess. So they kind of, and what I'll do too is I'll get them to negotiate why.
Okay. Or,
you know, well, negotiate with me. You don't want to go, you don't think it's a respect and responsibility incident? Well, how come? And like they have to kind of defend it. Mm-hmm. And if they make a good enough case, and it's usually a little bit minor, then I'll say, well, okay, I'll meet you halfway. How about we just take your first recess? Mm-hmm. And they'll say, well, it'd be better if you took the first one because the second one's longer.
But it still puts the onus on them.
It does, and you do. It's good in some ways to give them a little bit of choice. Mm-hmm. Just kind of teaches them to try to make pretty good decisions and that kind of thing. But definitely in my class, they're going to know what the consequence would be for certain things. So I would say that I would teach before.
Before, yeah.
Yeah, but you need to address things as they come up.
As well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I suppose even probably as you are now, but as a new teacher, we'll run into things that we didn't expect to run into.
Yeah, and like put that rule in there.
That's it. And really, if I compare my first, I'd even say 5 years, even if you do have pretty good classroom management, I think it only gets better.
Okay.
Like it's just something like it's like maybe baking. Like if you're gonna do it a lot, you're probably just gonna get better at it. But that's what it's like. Yeah, like I think you just get better at it.
Okay.
Get little tips from other teachers.
Yeah, exactly. Give us hope. Exactly. Yeah, they're big on the whole collaboration thing. So.
Yes. Yeah. Share.
Share all the ideas.
So our last question is, for your Bachelor of Education degree, do you think it would have been helpful to have a course like comp?
I think so, for sure. Like, you know, the more you can learn, the better. So you'd have, I would think, background knowledge going in, and at the same time you're seeing the host teacher model and do things, but then you're sort of relating it back to, hey, we talked about that, and then I think it would just make it a little bit more real.
It would reinforce it a bit more.
Yeah, reinforce it for sure. And you might even have an idea, like with the lingo sometimes they're using, you're like, oh, I read about that. But yeah, I think it would be quite important, but out of a book versus the real life in the classroom, they are two different worlds. Mm-hmm. So sometimes one thing I will say, and it might not be the case with comp, sometimes you read it and I'm going, okay, now what are the rest of the kids doing? You know, like just different things you'll read and you're like, oh, that sounds good on paper. Now, what are the other 24 doing when you're, you know, so
that's true, yeah.
I think it may be a little of both. Probably there's a lot of good things in there, but really you need to get in. It's beyond the classroom too, like that is definitely 80%, but I think the cafeteria and big places like the gym and like I would think that would help.
It helps you with background. I mean, it's easier to say like if they give they give a lot of examples like, oh, this is what I would do in this case, but until you actually
get there,
do in the classroom, and like it's not going to be the exact thing that we learn in there. It's going to be a kind of a deviation to it, but at least it kind of gives you an idea of like maybe I'll try this. From what I learned from comp.
That's it.
Because it takes a lot of experiences.
Yeah.
Of other teachers, and that's what is helpful too. Like you probably find that too in the classroom.
Yeah,
it's our professor giving us her experience along with what the book's saying.
So right.
What she did.
And then depending on like your learning disabilities and special needs and all those things, sometimes you can't have a real complicated system because you kind of need to reach everyone, and sometimes you really need to keep it very, very simple. Mm-hmm. So I had a child a few years ago. He was autistic and he just couldn't deal with noise. It was a real thing. Mm-hmm. And he was integrated 100% and with TA support, but by the time I had him in grade 3, we were kind of pulling a little bit away from the TA support because he was functioning quite well. Okay. So that year the rules and procedures were extra important because we were trying to avoid like outbursts and all those things. And the kids were really receptive to that, but like they had to understand that it was almost like a safety issue. Mm-hmm. And when I presented it that way, everybody was working together to create this really kind of nice, quiet environment, and like I would say it worked really well for about a month, but once they get comfortable and that kind of thing, and then you have to reteach. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You do. But it was like unbelievable how 1 or 2 students can affect the mix that way. So you're always trying to, you know, what you do one year might not work the next year.
Right. Yeah,
so
exactly.
Anyway.
I was just going to ask one more question. Did you have a course that was teaching like organization in the classroom when you took your Bachelor of Education? Or similar to it?
Yes, and I think it was just called Classroom Management.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a classroom management course, but it was a module based, so it was just.
Okay. That's what this is. It's module
okay,
based. Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did you take your?
St. Thomas.
St. Thomas.
Yeah. So we had, and I think at that time there was to teach the module. I could be wrong, but I feel like a middle school teacher came in.
Okay.
And must have worked something out maybe with the university because it was all like. And she was referring to whatever the book or the notes, and she was like, okay, and now here's the real version. Like, so it was very hilarious. Like, she definitely,
the book says
she agreed with a lot of it, and then she's like, okay, now for real life story. And we were like, wow. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's almost what you get. Yeah. With all that too.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you.